Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the week.
This one skeeves me out so bad. I can't even tell you. I was eating cereal while taking my notes this morning. It was gagging notes. Okay, so in Taiwan, a man was taking a shower, started to feel excruciating pain, and noticed a dirt-like substance falling into the drain from his penis. So obviously something's wrong, right? He thought, though, that it maybe was kidney stones. So he goes to the urologist, and the doctors were shocked to find, when they peeled back his foreskin, that he had a buildup of yellow-brown smegma that they believe had been there for about 30 years.
I hate the word smegma, okay? So smegma is an accumulation of skin and oil, skin cells, oil, and various types of body fluid that comes from a penis, like semen or urine, and it could accumulate underneath of the foreskin, which this is the biggest reason why people want to get boys circumcised, because that's what they consider to be dirty if they don't clean it correctly. But really, the whole point of foreskin is to protect the glands or the head of the penis. And if you teach a little boy from the time they're little how to clean that, they have to pull it back to clean it because it's kind of like a pocket. It could accumulate stuff inside of there.
Ew.
And this guy apparently has been not having sexual contact with his partner for over 30 years. And the doctors that were treating him even said, oh, maybe if he was having sex, that she would have found the little treat. They put in quotes. Yeah, exactly. So what happened was he apparently was never taught that he had to pull his foreskin back to clean it. And this smegma just stayed there and accumulated over the years, over at least 30 years. And it caused it to turn into stones almost, or a smegma-olith.
Ew.
And that's... Yeah, we call like a fecal lith is like a stone made out of poop, and this is a stone made out of smegma. So the pictures are disturbing because it looks like these rocks, and more disturbing is the doctor said that when they broke these rocks from around his penis, that the smell that was emitted was terrible.
I don't even want to know what this smell could possibly be like. I can't even believe I was taking notes on this. It was making me gag the entire time. How absolutely disgusting is this? But they also said that he reportedly had a rather long foreskin and no ability to pull it back to clean it properly.
Yeah, so you could have the most common time that you get these smegmoliths is from little kids actually that have a condition called phimosis, and it's when there's an inability for the foreskin to retract over the glands of the penis, and that they can't pull it back. And there can be adults that have this condition too. They didn't say that that's exactly what he had, but it could have been something like that he had physically wrong, that he wasn't able to retract the skin. But regardless, there's surgery they could do to fix that and make this not happen. And believe it or not, this could happen in women too. And it's just less likely to happen, but it can, an accumulation of the same kind of thing, sweat and oil and skin cells and all the different kinds of fluids that come out around there could get caught inside of the creases of the labia as well.
Ew. I mean, I guess we just have to focus on proper hygiene, and if you have a son that's uncircumcised, it's really important to stress cleaning it. But I never thought I'd hear a story like this. 30 years worth of buildup.
Yeah, and the thing is that smegma has also been known that it could increase the cause of penile cancer. It's not from what's in the smegma itself, but it's because of the chronic irritation of the penis can cause cells to start dividing, and it can increase the risk of skin cancer. And when you're having sex with partners and they have a sexually transmitted infection such as HPV and stuff, it could just further kind of trap those viruses against the skin there and cause cancer, which is scary. But this is not to, that I'm the biggest person that's like anti-circumcision. If I ever had a son, I absolutely would not get it done. So all you got to do is just teach your kid how to clean themselves, and this won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't believe he didn't have a problem before this point. Because it was decades.
Oh, he's been breaking off chunks of smegma for a long time, I'm sure.
Ew, and he didn't, like, his body odor just didn't smell?
It probably smelled terrible.
Oh my God.
I mean, think about it, because it's probably composed of dribbles of semen and urine and skin and sweat. It probably smelled terrible.
All right, I'm done with this because I feel like I'm going to vomit everywhere.
All right, let's get into celebrity news.
We only have one celebrity case this week, and it's kind of giving an update on Shannen Doherty. We've talked about her cancer journey before. She has stage 4 breast cancer. We talked about before that she had been diagnosed in 2015, but by 2017 was in remission, but then it returned in 2020, and now she's not doing so well. So on her podcast last week, she was talking about how she started clearing out a lot of her belongings, and she got rid of a property she had in Tennessee. So she kind of discussed how it was really difficult, especially with the property, because she had this place in Tennessee where she would foster abandoned horses, and I just can't even imagine how magical that was, you know, like going out and seeing a bunch of horses frolic around your property and everything. But she kind of knows how much of a pain this is going to be when she eventually dies for her loved ones to take care of. So she's trying to get ahead of it and make their life easier, because obviously her passing isn't going to be easy on them. So, you know, getting rid of all of her stuff is just going to make it even worse. So I want to know how you feel about that, because we talk about a lot with older people that I feel like they start hoarding more than getting rid of stuff when they know the time's coming.
I was going to say, this is like super responsible of her, because who does want it? That is a lot to take care of, and it is hard to just get over someone's death and have to take care of all of their shit after they die too. So, yeah, I mean, it's terribly sad. She has stage 4 cancer, which is the worst form of the breast cancer that you could get as far as it spreading. That stage 4, that means that it's spread from not only the breast and the lymph nodes, but it's all over her body, including her brain. So the lifespan of people living beyond 5 years that have stage 4 breast cancer is only about 27% of people live to be for 5 years after that diagnosis. So the thing is that some people do, but a lot of people don't. And it's that statistic is not based on a specific kind of breast cancer. So, you know, with Olivia Munn, we were talking about a couple weeks ago how she has a certain type that's hormone positive this and not this type of hormone positive. And when you do that type of testing, some people have a better chance with some different types of cancers than other types of cancer. So some are more deadly, some are less deadly. I don't think Shannen Doherty's ever said exactly what type of breast cancer that she has, but clearly she doesn't think that she's doing great or it's not going to end well because she's preparing. And that's just terribly sad for anybody, because she certainly doesn't seem like she's ready to die yet.
No, but it's, in a way, it's cool because she's selling off this stuff, and then in turn she has money to go on experiences and travel that will make the rest of her life fuller, you know? So she's taking a pretty horrible and sad experience and trying to make it the most positive as possible. I think it is really awesome that she's doing this for her family, and it's just really sad because, you know, you can't dance around it. She has the diagnosis. She knows exactly what's going to happen. There's no point of living in a fantasy. So it's better to get ahead of it. Yeah, and she said
that her mom has been having a really hard time with the fact that she pretty much knows she's going to have to bury her daughter before she dies. And that's a lot for a person to be able to handle just in and of itself. You don't want to have to worry about all the other stuff that comes along with it.
No, totally. So it's really sad to see that she's doing all of this stuff, but at the same time, at least she's trying to turn it into a positive and be like, I'm going to travel as long as I can and do stuff as long as I can. I don't need all this stuff, clearly, so I at least should experience and enjoy the rest of my life rather than just sit amongst all these belongings. So,
all right, freak accidents. We don't have that many this week, which is odd because this is usually our biggest category.
This first one,
but
though,
this one
horrible.
Is so, oh my God, wait till you guys see the video.
This guy in Oregon was going into a store, and seconds later, a runaway saw blade from a local construction site flew and hit the building. The blade was 4 foot long. How absolutely
4 foot. It was
4 foot wide.
more than
Yeah.
half of his body width, right? Or length. It's so crazy.
So if you watch this video, you see him, just casually open the door to this door, go in, and then seconds later, this blade just Final Destination style hits the building right where he was walking. So what would have happened if that blade made contact with him?
Well, God, so many things could have happened. I mean, it could have amputated one of his limbs easily, but also that would have caused, if it really severed or even injured one of his major arteries in his leg, especially like his femoral artery. I mean, you have to think 4 foot high is to the middle of your torso, right? Or even higher in some people. It's just, it could have really hit a major artery and caused him to bleed to death right there if there wasn't someone there to tourniquet it off, perhaps. I mean, I don't even know. It's nuts when you think about it, because it is a really near-death experience. And he said that he had to call out of work the next day and have a drink. He just couldn't shake it off.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know that. Like, we had that situation. I don't know if we've ever told this story, but Maria and I were living in an apartment building, which was a Victorian house that was split up into a bunch of, like, what, 5 or 6 apartments?
5 apartments, yeah.
And we moved out, and then a week later, it was just a week later, right? It was very soon afterwards.
It was like, I feel like we moved out right before Christmas, and this happened the beginning of February.
Yeah, it was not too long after we moved out, and a bunch of people started calling us and saying, like, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? And we're like, yeah, why? Oh, because they heard that there was this big explosion at the apartment building we were living in, and people didn't even know that we had moved out yet. And it turns out that the guy that owned the place was, like, trying to save money, and he just did these illegal hookups of the gas. And we knew about it I personally knew something was up at the time, because my gas bill was super, super cheap, and the person on the 5th apartment on the upstairs, hers was really, really expensive, and something just wasn't right. I smelled gas leaking a couple times. I even told my brother about it, but we were out of there, and that's what happened. There was a gas leak and an explosion, and fortunately, most of the people that lived there weren't home at the time, but there was one girl there who suffered severe burns, and she lived through it, but she's going to be affected by it for the rest of her life. And it freaked me and Maria out so, so bad, because it was on a Saturday. I'll never forget this. It was on a Saturday afternoon, and it was when I was working at the hospital, like the 9 to 5 schedule. So Saturday was like the day off, and it was after a long, hard week. And Maria and I used to just sit in the living room and, like, watch shows or something, and we more than likely would have been home at the time. And
well, we also only moved because you were pregnant with Lillian.
Yeah,
and otherwise
exactly.
we would have still been living there when that happened.
I know.
So we always say she saved our lives.
Yeah, Gabe likes to say that it was him, but we're like, no, it was Lillian.
No.
But anyway, getting back to it, it really, like, really messed us up. Like, we were so, just kept thinking, like, oh my God, like, what if we lived through that? We would drive by the apartment and see our old washing machine on the front lawn burned in pieces, and Maria's bedroom was completely destroyed.
And then my physics teacher, the next week after it happened, decided to take that as a lesson about how gas explosions occur. I was like, this is not making me feel great.
All right, so yeah, just getting back, it's just like living through, and we'd love to hear you guys have some comments under this episode of any near-death experiences that you've had that you thought, oh, if I was only there a second before or a second after, something really, really bad would have happened.
Yeah, and they said the impact was so strong that it shook the entire building. How nuts is that?
Yeah, I'm sure. And the video, the link is going to be in the post in the Grocery, and you could watch the video of it. I've never even seen a saw blade that big before. I'm assuming they're cutting huge trees or something.
Well, they were saying it was to cut concrete, so.
Oh, it's even more powerful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the fact that it flew across an entire parking lot and nobody was walking by or anything, it's so absolutely insane.
Yeah, and just, again, it's like every week we could say, the phrase, a new fear unlocked, because who would have even thought that something like, I've never heard of anything like that happening, because if it happened often, you would think that lots of people would be getting hurt, but
I almost feel like we should have a new section called like Final Destination Moment of the Week because there's so many of them and it is truly scary. But what could you do about this? That's why it's categorized as a freak accident, because it's not common.
this other one happened in China. You want to get into this story?
So this woman is just, you see this on security footage. This woman's just browsing around a store, as most people do, when suddenly the floor beneath her collapses, taking her in the floor along with the clothing rack. And the video is just kind of insane because, you see her fall on the ground and then this mannequin just nearly escapes falling into the hole as well. And I was so confused. I thought that was another person for a second, the mannequin in the footage. And this other lady is, probably a foot from where the floor caves in and really doesn't seem that affected by the fact that the floor just completely caved in. But this woman that got sucked into the ground got stuck under the rubble, as well as a construction worker that was underneath of the floor. But they were both safely removed. But how scary to just be, like in a mall
I wonder
shopping.
what they were doing underneath there that could have caused that. I know they were saying that it could have been a sinkhole, which is like a natural depression in the ground. And if it gets, those things happen sometimes if there's floods, because the flood water could kind of disintegrate like a softer rock and things could fall into it. But they didn't really say much more about it. It just, again, this is just like a video scaring the shit out of you, being at the mall and just falling through the floor.
Yeah, I mean, they said it's under investigation, but who knows what was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
It seemed like it caved in pretty easy, so.
Yeah, it really did. And it's crazy because the floor was made out of blocks. It reminded me of when I was a kid, there was this game called Don't Break the Ice, and it was like all those blocks. They just fell into the ground like that. It was so nuts.
Yeah, it was.
All right, violent crime.
Okay. Police in Pennsylvania got a call that there was an active assault happening the other day. So when they got to the scene, they found a 59-year-old man had been struck in the head, had cuts on his arms that were consistent with defense wounds. He was rushed to the hospital and later died. So what turns out happened is that his 30-year-old neighbor went over to the house in a full-blown Scream costume, Scream the movie, like the painting face that looks melted.
Yeah, the Halloween mask with the black drapey robe thing. Yes.
Yeah, literally with a robe and the mask on. And then used a knife and chainsaw to hack at him, and eventually he died from that.
Yeah, and police say that after he went and he initially said that he went over there to scare him, and then he admitted to purposely, intentfully hurting him. And the cops said that after he went home and did this attack, that he went to watch a movie. They didn't say what movie he was watching.
No, I was gonna ask you, what movie do you think he turned on?
Scream? I don't.
Obviously there's costumes because, they're associated with Halloween and we want to think they're scary. But the thought of somebody actually coming into your home unannounced wearing something like that and then starts trying to actually kill you is a really horrific thing.
It's terrifying, it sounds. And it sounds like the guy got stabbed in the head. And it's so weird when you think of stabbing someone in the head because the skull is so rigid, like it wouldn't go through. But trust me, there's plenty of cases in the gross room that show that the knife does go through sometimes. It could go through all different weak points in the skull. And we have images of x-rays with a knife, like a huge butcher knife, like in the head. It's so crazy. And we also have some cases of a chainsaw being used as a weapon, which is also really, really gnarly wounds it leaves too.
But guys, I'd be really interested to hear what movie you thought he was watching, because I'm like, did he go right into the horror genre? Was he feeling sad to watch the Hallmark movie? Where do you think it went from there? But yeah, he was watching the movie until the cops showed up, and then, they caught him on camera leaving the guy's house. Can you imagine seeing this security footage probably from a doorbell of like this guy in a Scream costume leaving somebody else's house?
No. And I think it was his girlfriend or his cousin or his sisters. Somebody that he was close with said that, oh yeah, he had told me last week he wanted to kill the neighbor.
Yeah, then why didn't you say anything?
Like, do people have these conversations that someone legitimately tells them they want to kill somebody and people just sit on that? Like that, if anybody told me that, I would be like, I wouldn't want to sit on that,
Well,
because
do you
that makes me think that's something bad. You don't say that unless you're disturbed. That's not something you would say, even if you're super pissed off at somebody. It's
Yeah,
just,
but do you think it was like I'm gonna kill that guy, or like I'm
I
going
don't
to
think
go
so,
there and
'cause
murder him?
I don't think so. Because why would she even say, like, I don't know.
I don't know, because I'm thinking about when we covered that poisoning case a couple of months ago with the woman and the Moscow Mule, and the guy had told his friends, like, oh, I think she's trying to poison me. And then we were saying how we've had jokes in our family where it's like, would you poison me? But we're just clearly kidding, not like, oh no, this person's literally putting chemicals in my coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was one of those situations or what, but
All right, we have a couple crazy stories this week that involve children
yeah.
and like violent crime, and I definitely think, based upon what the stories that we see, that there's this increase of little kids that are doing stuff that you just can't even imagine that they're involved in at these super young ages. So tell them about this first story.
Okay, so the first one is these cops noticed that this car was just stopped in the middle of an intersection and started following the car, and it led to like this mini police chase that ended in a parking lot of next to an elementary school. And when the car stopped, it accidentally reversed and hit the patrol car. So when the cop gets out, he sees that the driver is 9 years old. And he says,
and the kid was straight up just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, officer. I was trying to get to school." He was 9.
So at the same time, this kid's mom was getting ready and then goes to, like, he was watching TV in the living room and goes out there and he's not there and the car keys aren't gone. So she calls 911, frantically freaking out about where he is. So it kind of, like, at the time they noticed the car is when the 911 call came. So it kind of went hand in hand together. But, the grandmother was saying that the boy was incredibly impatient. Apparently, he saw a woman selling strawberries on the side of the road and yelled at her and said he would buy some if he wasn't allergic. I don't know if he was just like on a joyride.
I have a 9-year-old. Like, if she went in the car, I mean, she drives with me all the time, drives with Gabe all the time. I'm sure she could figure out how to start it and stuff. But I just feel like somebody taught that kid how to drive a car.
Didn't Louis drive a car down the street when he was really little?
No, I don't think so.
I thought when
he wasn't little when he moved the car from outside of our apartment. He was like 15. He was definitely not old enough to drive, but he was.
I thought I thought there's a story that when he was like 5, the car was parked on the street outside of our house. And he, like, accidentally put it in drive and rolled down the street.
No, that didn't happen.
All right, I'll have to get Mom to fact check this.
He did. I remember one time, it was like when we were living in the city, and Pop needed to move the car, and he said to Louis, "Go move the car." But Louis was young. He was 15. But the difference between a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old, I mean, Lucia is like a big kid, and I don't think that she'd be able to reach the pedals.
I think Louis is the type of child that could have figured out how to drive at 9 years old because of his like you said, he was changing a tire when he was 5. Like, he could figure out how to shift the gears.
No, I know that you could figure out how to shift the gears, but for him to get out of the driveway and drive all the way to the school, even though he wasn't following the license and not crash or anything, I just think he had to know that the brake and the gas, like, he had to know the rules. You couldn't even do that with a 20-year-old if they went in the car and just said, "Hey, drive
to your house." Let alone I got 20 years on this. Okay, this next one is really disturbing. So
we talked about this already. A few when it happened, we talked about this case.
I didn't even realize.
It might not have been. It was along the same lines of us talking about young kids doing terrible things. And I don't know if we did a full coverage of this story, but we definitely mentioned it at some point, that there was a group of teenage boys that beat the crap out of a kid at a party, and then the kid ended up dying a couple days later.
So it gets so much worse. And we're talking about a lot that teenagers are just having this total disregard for life lately, and we don't know what it's about. But Basically, in October, 7 teenage boys all ganged up on another boy at a house party, beat him until he died. But before he died, he was, I'm assuming, unconscious, and they were dancing and humping his body after severely beating this boy. And to make matters worse, they were taking videos of it, and this one kid in particular was on Snapchat bragging about it, saying, quote, "I got in a fight, a big group fight, and I accidentally killed a kid. Guess I'm just too strong." It's not cute. And that kid's family has a horrible history too. The dad was arrested only a couple months ago. The brother was arrested for gang activity. There seems to be a lot of issues going on in this house. I also saw a bunch of them were football players, and I'm not trying to stereotype them, but I'm wondering if there's, head injuries involved.
No, I don't think that. No, I wouldn't say that. They're too young. That wouldn't show up quite yet. They just suck as people, and there's the dad apparently. They're like, I don't know if they're all rich kids, but the one that we're talking about in general that was saying those comments is he comes from a wealthy family that owns some kind of prominent gym, and I mean the only thing that the only drug I could think that would be associated with some kind of increase in aggression would be like steroid use or something, which may be possible if they're trying to get the kids to lift weights and get, bigger bodies. That's the only thing that I could think would be an abnormal thing that would cause aggression like that. Like, even if these kids had concussions and the head trauma, I don't buy that. That won't even happen until later in life anyway. And there's thousands and thousands of people that play football every single day and year, and they're completely fine and would never do anything like that.
I was just curious about that because of the, what we know about CT and everything. Yeah. And children start playing football when they're young. But the dad was arrested for drug possession and paraphernalia, so it could be very possible they were doing drugs. They were also drinking underage, which we know is a bad idea because your brain's not fully developed. And I just think it's scary, this need to go on social media and brag about ending the life of another kid. It's horrible.
I don't know. It's just there's a trend, because there's another story that we're not talking about this week of young teenage girls who beat up some guy to death too. And it happened in Philly it was probably like a year ago now, that a group of teenage girls, like some of them as young as 13 and 12 years old, going up to some guy on the street and beating him to death with a traffic cone. I just don't understand. There's like this disregard for human life. And the way that kid was talking about this kid, it was over. The kid looks like the kid that died looks just like a little kid.
Well, you heard about what's happening in New York too, right? Like, these men are just going up to girls on their phones and punching them in the face on the street.
What? No, I didn't hear about that.
No, it's like becoming a serious problem. Okay, next. This is really, really disturbing. So in Florida, 10-year-olds were arrested for a $300 gun sale deal brokered inside of an elementary school. So a parent alerted this school that their kid said another kid had a gun. So the school went on lockdown and found a backpack containing ammunition and 74 grams of marijuana belonging to a 10-year-old student. So talking to the boy, they found out that he had bought the gun from another student of the same age. The gun was the other kid's dead dad's gun, and his mother was a local police officer. So you have to wonder what went wrong. So she's been put on administrative leave while they investigate what's going on. That both kids are facing adult-like criminal charges for selling and purchasing firearms.
I just don't understand how a kid is in trouble for this, a 10-year-old child. I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they don't know shit.
Yeah.
Okay? They definitely wouldn't do something like this, and I just don't think criminal charges are the way to handle this at all, because any single thing that that my children do, it's my fault at this point. It doesn't have anything to do with them at this point. I just don't understand. The parents need to be looked at. I understand that this is not good that these kids are doing that, but I just think criminal charges against them is not.
And they're severe charges. So the child purchaser is facing charges of purchasing a firearm, unlawful possession of a firearm by a minor, having a gun on school property, and drug possession. And then the seller is charged with selling a firearm to a minor, possession of a firearm by a minor, possession of a firearm on school property, and theft. So
these kids are in 4th or 5th
Yes.
grade. It sounds silly that we're even having this conversation.
No, I
right
agree
now.
with you. Like, obviously, they need to go through some therapeutic treatment to understand why they thought this was okay, but I don't understand why they're facing adult-like charges when their brains are not even nearly developed.
Like, where does a 10-year-old... Do you know how much 74 grams of weed? Do you remember?
It's so much.
It's so much. Like when I was a kid, they used to have these things called dime bags, which was like the amount of weed you could put in a joint or two, right? And they were like these little Ziploc bags. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, grandmother. I know. what you're
Okay.
talking-
Well, seriously, this like 74 of those size bags. That's a lot of weed for like the kid got the weed somewhere. Why isn't that person in trouble?
I think
this
adults
is like
are gonna
blowing
have
my mind.
adults are going to have to be charged in this case, but I absolutely cannot fathom that these children are being held in a juvenile detention center and being charged with adult-like crimes. They're 10 years old.
I just like, what is happening in the world right now?
They don't know better. It's just it's so absolutely
and
insane.
they need some kind of remediation, and they need some kind of treatment, because not only are the charges against them, like this can blemish their life for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Putting these kind of charges on them. I mean, think about this. They're 10, right? They don't even know. All they care about besides selling drugs and guns, because that's a culture that they're in. That's why they think that that's cool, instead of wanting to play like Roblox or whatever 10-year-olds are doing. But they're little kids, right? So what are you going to do when they want to get a job?
Lucia's 10, will be 10 this year, and doesn't even know the Easter Bunny's not real. Like, how are these
She
children
literally
brokering
doesn't.
gun
We just had Easter the other day, and like she thinks the Easter Bunny's real.
And where are they getting $300 to purchase said gun, and the other parent doesn't notice this kid has $300?
I don't know. Like, well, I don't know. I can't say that, because like Lillian is always packing money, because Pop-Pop's always handing her his casino winnings. But I hope that she's not making drug purchases gun purchases
you
at
would
school.
I think you would notice or hear about if she exchanged hundreds of dollars.
No, I mean, she doesn't even really have access to it,
And she
because
tattles on
because
herself.
you can't trust a child to be in control of money like that. Like, it's just,
No.
like, what I don't understand what is going on in some places. And the first thing isn't that these the mom's on administrative leave, like, and also this mom is a cop. She's representing the law and how people should be acting.
All I could think about with her, and I'm not defending her, is that they said if the kid's dad died, I want to say maybe that was her husband, and maybe she was in a period of distress and everything, but you can't have weapons
Yeah, that's
you can't have
that's her
weapons
problem. I'm
not
sorry.
in control.
Yeah,
I'm not defending her. I'm just saying, like, all I could see is, like, maybe she has a lot of heavy stuff going on, is dealing with serious depression and everything. That doesn't mean you leave weapons unattended in your house, especially when you have children there.
And especially when you're a police officer and you know what happens.
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
Exactly.
All right, so this last case that we're going to talk about is pretty reminiscent of a story we covered a couple months ago, right? All right, why don't you talk about it?
So, in a 20-minute spree, 4 people were killed and 7 injured, allegedly due to laced marijuana. So, this guy went to his friend's house, they smoked weed, and within minutes, he started chasing the friend, stabbing him, ran him over. This led into a subsequent spree where he was breaking into people's houses, attacking them, attacking people on the street, including a post office worker just trying to deliver mail, And it's unfortunate because 4 people were killed, 7 were injured, one of which was a teenage girl who he beat with a baseball bat that he found in the home. What could be going on? Everybody involved in this said it was like a scene out of a horror movie. He seemed like the devil incarnated, just running around this neighborhood attacking people. And he's justifying it, saying he believed the marijuana he smoked was laced with a psychotic.
No, it's not. And this is what I want to say. Like, this is why I'm against the legalization of weed, because there's just going to be more and more cases of this, that people are doing this because they think it's this benign thing because it's legal now, right? And it causes cannabis-induced psychosis on people. It does. It's proven that there's people that, especially if you started using it when you were younger and you're a user every day, there is a direct correlation that it's not super benign of a drug for certain people. And the reason that I say that too is because we just had a case that we talked about a couple months ago of this woman who stabbed her boyfriend to death violently again, and said that she had this high potency weed and she had cannabis-induced psychosis, and she was looking at a life sentence for murder and ended up getting off on 2 years probation because the court actually bought that. Now, we're going to keep seeing this over and over again, that they're going to use this as a defense, and people that are doing crazy ass shit like this are going to get off. Meanwhile, everyone else that's the victim of this stuff has to just sit back and say like, oh, cool, this is just happening. And it's because the weed that they sell at these stores is so high potency, and it's just not good for some people. And it's not even in people that already have a diagnosis of schizophrenia or something like that. It could just turn what is seemingly a normal person, it could turn it on in them like that. And it's a known documented thing. So we can't just keep acting like, oh, it's legal, it's totally fine, it's not that bad, it's just an herb. Like, it's not that simple, especially the genetically modified stuff that they're selling these days.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by CrimeCon.
Guys, CrimeCon is coming to Nashville this May 31st to June 2nd. We're going to be there. Some other really awesome guests are going to be there, including Chris Hansen, if you could believe it or not. We also have an external exam coming up next week with Dr. Jason Bird, and my mind was blown away by the interview. It was so incredible.
Yeah, I'm most looking forward to meeting him now. I just was so happy to talk to him yesterday, and really, I didn't want to keep him too long, but I probably could have talked to him for like another 4 hours.
I could have listened to 4 hours of it. I was so blown away.
Yeah, he's so cool, and he just has so much knowledge, this well-rounded education of forensics, and it's really cool. And his team they're going to be doing all of these workshops at CrimeCon and lectures, and I can't wait to sit in on them.
Yeah, so there's going to be a bunch of other podcasters. There's also going to be some famous true crime cases like Maya Kowalski. So that's going to be really interesting. John Ramsey's going to be there too. I'm very interested to see that appearance. So standard badges are available right now, but they're really close to selling out. So you definitely don't want to miss it. Gold and platinum tickets have been sold out for quite a while, but somebody might have to drop off at the last minute, so you could always join the wait list. So you want to follow CrimeCon at CrimeCon on Instagram and X for any updates. It's where they announce all the speakers. They're still slowly rolling out all of the speaker announcements, so I'm personally excited as a fan of true crime, just seeing week by week who gets announced.
Because we don't really know everyone that's going yet. So I was surprised to hear about John Ramsey. That's John Benet Ramsey's dad, for all of you.
Yeah, so I was really shocked when you sent me that the other day. I was like, wow. But yeah, you definitely want to follow them on Instagram and X for all the latest updates. You could also join their free mailing list, which is crimecon.com/email. And there you can get some more information about the conference. You'll get information about upcoming events like Crime Cruise this fall. That should be super cool. Just being on a cruise ship with everybody that likes the same stuff as you. I'm definitely really interested in that, but we're really excited to see you guys in a couple of months. It's coming up so fast. I can't even believe it. But
yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, but we love CrimeCon. We love Nashville. It's the perfect combination. And you guys could see you do a lecture. We're going to do our very first live podcast, which is going to be super awesome. So make sure to follow CrimeCon at CrimeCon or join their free mailing list at crimecon.com/email.
Thanks, CrimeCon. All right, we have some pretty interesting medical news this week.
We're going to lighten up the mood a little bit. We always know the violent crime section's a little tough to get through, but this story is my personal favorite of the week. Mount Everest climbers have to take their poop with them, according to a new order from Nepal. So, the Himalayan Times reported in 2023 that a cleanup crew had collected more than 78,000 pounds of waste and plastics from Mount Everest. we know that climbing up Mount Everest is one of the most dangerous things people could do. Michelle, our guest writer, actually wrote a really awesome article about what can happen to you. So Nepal is now enforcing that climbers have to pick up their own poop in an effort to aid pollution issues they're facing. So climbers will now get 2 biodegradable bags for their poop waste that must come down with them when they return. So apparently the bags contain a chemical that helps the poop smell, so it's not that bad, which I don't know what
I don't
chemical.
believe that.
I don't believe it at all. I don't know what chemical is completely masking the smell of poop. But basically, they have to, when they do their business, they have to then collect it in these bags. And I guess if they don't come down with the bags, then they get fined or something.
Well, I never actually really thought about this, but there's so many people that are climbing Mount Everest, and they kind of get this attitude that, oh, this is really tough on the body. I'm just like, fuck this. I'm leaving this oxygen tank up here. I'm leaving. And there's like a landfill up there with trash and apparently 3 tons of human poop up there. They're just saying it was such an incredible amount of poop. And it's getting to the point where it smells when you walk up there, and you're in nature and it's so beautiful and you don't want to smell human shit, right? And not only is it just the smell that's uncomfortable, but it's the poop is starting to mix with the ice. And sometimes when some of it melts and there's runoff, people are getting respiratory infections and people are getting GI infections because they're exposed to so much human waste. And it's just so nasty.
Yeah, so the Nepal Mountaineering Association says an estimated 1,200 people will be on Everest this upcoming season, and they produce an average of 8.8 ounces of excrement a day. So think of that times the 1,200 people that are going to be climbing Mount Everest this season. That's a lot of shit. So
it is. And you just don't think about this, because when you think like when a dog poops outside or something, it's nasty, but eventually it'll start decomposing and it'll go away. But when you're in temperatures that cold, it just preserves the shit. Like it's just sitting there. It's a preserved turd.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see if they're going to be fined or what the consequences are going to be for this, because personally I'd be like, if I'm spending thousands of dollars to make this trek, I don't give a shit about picking up my own poop. But I also understand people that probably do this climb, try to care about the environment. I mean, I would never personally hike anything, let alone a mountain.
I would look at it from the town below and just point and say, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, exactly. I guess helicopters can't go up there, right? So
it is funny that you bring up the bag situation, because I have this thing that I hate the smell of like those poop air freshener things that whatever kind it is, because when we used to open a colon or something in the lab, right? It's obviously it smells like shit because it's filled with shit. And then one of the guys that I used to work with used to go around the lab and spray this like orange air freshener. And it just, all it does is make it smell like orange shit. Like nothing masks the smell of shit, right?
I know, that's what I was thinking. Have you ever been in a porta potty? It's like you smell cleaner, but you still smell shit.
No, I'd rather just smell the shit. I hate the smell of trying to mask it. Just like, it is what it is. It's poop. That's why you say it smells like shit. It's the worst smell.
And what magical chemical is lining this bag that every time you open it, it doesn't smell? It just doesn't even make sense.
I wouldn't want to put a bag of shit in my brand new backpack. I'll tell you that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think people are going to adhere to the rule, because the permit to climb Mount Everest alone is $11,000. Then you have to factor in all the equipment you need and everything.
Yeah, so I think Michelle was saying in that article that she wrote that it costs like it ends up costing people over $100,000 to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like
imagine.
A big deal.
I think there was a documentary that came out a couple years ago that talked about the cleanup, because a lot of people die on the hike, so they send cleanup crews to like collect all their equipment and everything. Mount Everest is very fascinating to me, and just because
that's another thing there too, is that they're not going to decompose because they're in like a deep freezer, right? So yeah. It can be a health issue though, for sure.
And I don't know if this is like, a total myth, but I've heard, it's really hard for the cleanup crews to get up to certain summits, but people can get up there. But if you die on one of the higher summits, I've heard that, or if you're up on one of the higher summits, I've heard there's like people in hiking gear from like the 80s just frozen, preserved in time.
She put photos of that in the post. It's really interesting.
They can't get their bodies down, so if you die past a certain point, then you're up there forever. So, and you're
All right,
frozen
so-
to death.
We're going to move on from stinky poop to stinky vaginas.
So, the latest viral trend on TikTok is claiming to help women alter the smell and taste of their vaginas. So, these videos are saying that by consuming bananas and excessive pineapple juice, which they're calling coochie juice, could help make your vagina smell better.
I don't know. Like, I know, I don't think that this really does anything, to be honest with you. I think that you just have to, if you just have good vaginal and vulva health, then you should smell and taste and look just fine down there. It's just like there's all these other things that could cause the smells down there. And I don't think that the juice is going to help because of the other things that cause it.
Yeah, because I saw one of the videos was like, this could help with your fishy odor. And I'm like, sweetie, if you're having a fishy odor, you got a big problem going on down there.
Well, it's not a big problem. It's common problems that could cause that because it just that kind of smell could happen from anything from like leaky urine to something called bacterial vaginosis, which is you have this imbalance of, your vagina is a fine balance of good bacteria, bad bacteria, yeast, and when that balance shifts, then you can get something called bacterial vaginosis, which can give a fishy smell. You can get like sexually transmitted infections like trichomonas that could give an odor.
But regardless, like if you have an odor that is off, you should be seeking medical attention.
Yeah, if you have something that's like that, for sure. And also you can get that smell from if you just have like longer pubic hair and you're leaking urine, the smell can get in there. If you have a urinary tract infection, it could cause a smell. It's because of all that bacteria mixes with other bacteria coming out of your butt, and they mix and put off really offensive odors as those bacteria mix. So there's lots of different ways to just keep that in check. And even if you had like a nasty smell like that, drinking pineapple juice isn't going to make that go away. You need medical treatment.
Yeah, and I've heard this before with making semen taste better, that they would recommend guys take pineapple juice or eat like Mike and Ike candy or something, and that would sweeten up the semen. So I'm thinking,
wasn't there an episode of Sex in the City that Samantha said he had funky tasting skunk?
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of the guy from the first story. Maybe he should be drinking the coochie juice.
Yeah, I don't know what he should be doing, but whatever he was doing was definitely not working.
Disgusting. Okay, next. A new study indicates that women who drink more than 8 alcoholic beverages a week are at greater risk of developing heart disease than those who drink less.
All right, so they studied 432,000 people ages 18 to 65. Of those people, 243,000 were men and 189,000 were women of the average age of 44. They were looking at these people because they were all going to primary care doctor and none of them had a history of heart disease. So they were able to collect their data based upon these questions they asked them, which was, do you drink alcohol and how much do you drink? So if you didn't drink alcohol at all, you weren't allowed to be in the study. It had people that had low drinking, so that would be 1 to 2 drinks a week. Moderate drinking would be 3 to 14 drinks a week for a man and 3 to 7 drinks a week for a woman. And then a high drinker would be 15 or more for a man and 8 or more for a woman. They followed these people for 4 years. And after 4 years, 3,108 of them were diagnosed with coronary artery disease. And when they looked at who these people were, the women that reported high alcohol intake, which was over 8 drinks a week, they had a 33 to 51% higher risk for developing heart disease than people who only drank moderately 3 to 7 or less than that. This is like I think this is a really good study, honestly, because they studied people that just said that they didn't drink. They started off saying that. They said how much they drank, and they said they didn't have heart disease, which was really the biggest thing. And they were able to study that these people that were drinking that much were indeed getting heart disease. It's pretty interesting, actually. And I feel like, this coincides with there's this increased risk of heart disease, especially in women. And it's like, yeah, dub, this study proves it. And I know so many people that drink definitely way more than 8 drinks a week.
Well, we're also living in a time where, you know, people are being socially pressured more than ever to drink. And if you don't want to drink, I've personally experienced this being in my young 20s and not being a huge drinker. If I don't want to drink, the assumption is always that I'm pregnant, which is like kind of rude. I just don't want to drink sometimes. It's okay.
I do get that feeling too. Like Gabe and I will go to a restaurant and they'll say, "Oh, what do you want to drink?" And then we'll say like 2 club sodas with lime. And they're like, "Oh,
yeah, exactly."
like,
it's either like,
I just get this, "Oh, okay, we'll take these drinks off your table." Like, or these empty glasses. And it's like, nah, dude, I don't want to. So I do feel that, but I don't care. Like, if you shouldn't be pressured by anybody to drink. If you don't want to drink, just say you don't want to drink. It's not that big of a deal. I know personally, though, like, especially when I was younger and I was in college and stuff, I never drank. I just don't like it. And then all of a sudden you go to the bar with your friends and then they're all super fucking annoying because they're all drunk and you're sitting there like, oh, this is lame. So then you drink just to kind of have fun with everybody else because it's just like this thing. So I understand that like lots of kids, especially younger people, get sucked into that.
yeah, I mean, even within the last 6 months, I met somebody new that like at a friend's birthday dinner and they were like, "Oh, how long have you been sober?" I'm like, "I'm not sober. I just don't drink that much."
Yeah, I don't like the taste of it.
I'm like, nothing's wrong. I don't have a problem with alcohol. I'm not pregnant. I don't have like any issues. I just don't like to drink. I don't like feeling awful like that. Sorry.
I don't like to drink. I don't even like to drink water. Like, I don't like to drink that much. But they were saying in this study that women that were binge drinkers, they were at an even more increased risk. So this is like saying if you have 8 drinks a week, so you have 8 glasses of wine a week versus if you have 8 of those glasses in one night as opposed to spread over the week, it's even worse. So that's something to keep in mind because sometimes people, they only drink on Saturdays or something, but then they like load it up on that day. So that is also increasing the risk, and it just seems to be so much worse for women than for men.
Yeah.
Which is, I was reading this and I was kind of like, that's kind of unfair. Like for a woman, it's considered 3 to 7 a week, right? In the same category for a man, they could have 3 to 14 a week. It's like it's double of what a woman could have.
Well, that doesn't really surprise me because I would just think
it's like
because
based
of
on
their
body weight
body,
and stuff.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just kind of like whatever.
Okay, new apps are coming out using AI technology to detect a range of sexually transmitted infections from a single snapshot of a penis. So this software uses a combination of questionnaires and AI scanning to flag photographic evidence of various STIs, including genital warts, herpes, and syphilis. Some of this software can also possibly detect cancer. They're not giving you a formal diagnosis. They're just kind of being like, hey, we think this could be wrong with you, so go seek actual medical attention for it. But these apps are selling themselves as like a woman's best friend because they think, you know,
You will never. If you're sleeping with a guy and he's got a weird bump on his dick, you are never just going to be like, hey, let me take a picture of that real quick and scan it.
I just can't see how this would be successful. You're never going to break like intimacy leading up to having sex and be like, let me just take this picture of your dick and make sure nothing's wrong with you. It's just really not realistic that somebody that's in the heat of the moment is going to stop everything they're doing to check. I don't know.
I just think it's like, I'll save you the money for the app. Just like if you see some bumps, maybe just be like hold back on that because it could be something. I don't know. But I love that they said for this app, they originally had their database was 200 pictures of penises that have STIs versus not. And then they had this open call that they needed dick pics for science. And then they were able to collect an additional 20,000 pictures for this app. And a lot of people that take care, like urologists and people that are taking care of patients that have sexually transmitted infections, they're just kind of not a fan of this app because they're saying that even if sometimes like a guy, like let's say a guy has lesions on his penis and he goes to urgent care and in a well-lit room with a doctor that's got experience for 30 years looking at these things, you can't just look at a lesion alone all the time and say like, hey, oh, you definitely have this or you definitely have that. You can sometimes. Like sometimes like a wart is a wart. It looks a certain way, whatever. But the real way to do it is to do proper STI in fact, like for the infection, to actually culture it or to work it up and to screen for these things. So even if this thing sees a bump, it might say like, hey, this looks abnormal, but you still have to go and get it. And it might actually offer this like, false sense of security because there's lots of sexually transmitted infections that don't even have symptoms. So that would just be like, oh, well, I'm not going to go get STI infection screening anymore because I looked at the app and I'm cool, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the problem.
I think there's many issues with this. One of them being that this app is really marketed towards younger people and there's no age verification. So, you know, there's a concern about them having photos of minors that are sexual.
Which they will 100%.
And they have very, very, very vague privacy policies, these companies that are running these apps. So it's not really looking great. Like, what are they doing with these pictures? Are they going to use it against you in some capacity? I don't know. And then a lot of people also have an issue with it because it's, you know, it damages sexual health conversations in relationships. What if it says your partner's positive and they really aren't, and then this starts a whole fight? It's a story we talked about recently where with Halle Berry, where they said she had herpes, right? And she didn't end up having herpes. She was premenopausal, and that could really have this horrible conversation with your significant other or your partner about maybe cheating or something, or you have this false understanding that something's wrong with you when it's not. Or you could scan your dick, not red flag as anything, and then be having a serious problem. Because as you said, a lot of STIs are kind of asymptomatic and aren't necessarily always visible. So I don't really see how this is going to be good technology. Furthermore, I don't think these companies are, you know, all that trustworthy. They're saying on the home pages and advertising for these apps, they're saying they're 95% effective. But when you're really reading the fine print, they say they're really only up to 65% effective. So I don't know where they get away with saying they're 95% effective.
It's the same shit as these apps that I use for like gardening and stuff. It's like sometimes I'll put it up to a plant I'm trying to grow or something, and then it calls it something completely different, which I know it's not.
Or it just says everything's a dicot.
Everything's a dicot, yeah.
You're like, nothing else.
Like sometimes there'll still be like a weird bug I'll try to take a picture of, and it says it's like a plant. Like it's not 100, but sometimes it's really good, but sometimes it's not. And like you don't want to mess with your penis like that.
I don't know. Like I personally, I can't see anybody ever using this at all. To like, what are you gonna stop mid-sex and be like,
no girl's gonna
hold up, let me see what this bump is.
I'm sure there's some women that would do that, but
I don't know. I really think this is a waste of money and resources. Maybe they could use this technology to help with like in doctors' offices scanning for maybe further testing, but I don't see how this is just in a handheld device for everybody. I think it's really messy.
All right, speaking of penises.
So a surgeon specializing in sexual health says you cannot tell the size of a man's penis simply by looking at his hands and feet, but rather a Japanese study has come out to say you could potentially detect their size from their nose.
Interesting. So you want to look for a guy that's got a really big nose.
Yeah, but she's of course saying, the surgeon, that study was only including one culture of people, so you have to think about that. It wasn't done worldwide. It was only done in Japan, so it's only relevant to Japanese people. But it definitely is an interesting finding because we definitely have this cultural understanding that's a joke, like, oh, he has big hands, he must have a huge dick. Doesn't always mean it's true.
We're just reporting the science. We're just
reporting the news. We're not saying it's factual. But, all right, on to our last medical story, which is truly disturbing for me. More than 150 cancer cases are possibly connected to one building at North Carolina State University. So, in November, news outlets started getting reports of people who all had cancer and attended classes at Poe Hall at the university's Raleigh campus. This hall housed North Carolina State's College of Education and Department of Psychology. So, Explain for everybody what's going on.
In 1971, they used to use these materials to do construction called polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs. And they're not used anymore, but they were used in lots of buildings that all of us use all the time from like the 70s to the 80s. And they've done all of these testing on these buildings and found that this building had 38 times more than what the EPA decides is
as recently as 2018.
Yeah. But people have been going to school, and it's like all these people get cancer and they just don't really think anything of it. Especially the one girl in the article, she had thyroid cancer and she didn't really think anything of it. And then all of a sudden she's hearing that there might be this cluster. They'll call it a cluster when there's like multiple people in one area that are getting more cancer than should be in that particular area. And she found out that the North Carolina State alumni have been diagnosed with cancer 3 times the number of average cancer cases. So then that made them start talking like, when did you go to school? What building did you go to school in? And all of these ones are kind of adding up. And you hear about things like this in different cases, like the Erin Brockovich case. And there was even some talk that there was cancer clusters associated with our stadium, our old baseball stadium.
Yeah, because of the materials used in the turf field. What is interesting to me, though, is they're not considering this a cluster.
Well, they're not right now.
Yeah.
But I think there's like these loose guidelines from the CDC of what's considered a cluster. So I think there still needs to be something like more done, because it's just a little... listen, I don't trust anything that any of these associations say. You have all these people, 152 people that went to the same school that have cancer. It's not a coincidence. So whatever they say and whatever people are trying to push under the rug,
It's like that nuclear plant documentary that came out a couple years ago. I think you said you watched it too, where this whole town had this really rare form of lymphoma, and they were like, that has nothing to do with the plant leak that happened.
Was that the
3 Mile Island? Was that what it was called?
Oh yeah, there's a million cases of that. I mean, that's why the Erin Brockovich movie was popular, and that other one called Deep Waters.
Yeah, but you're like, how could you seriously say that all these people in this secluded area, you had this known incident, and then subsequently all these people have this issue, and you seriously are saying it's not connected?
And also just like the multiple thyroid cancers and like some of the same cancers coming up. It's just a couple like weird ones that people got. It's just, to me, when you're saying it's that increase, there's just something up, and you just can't blow that off. Whatever they say, I don't care, you know, like they tell you sometimes not to believe what your eyes are seeing, right? It's just really funny.
Yeah.
Okay, other death news.
So this week in the Gross Room, our high-profile death dissection, we covered crucifixion. So, you know, we get into the case of the most famous crucifixion, which was of Jesus Christ, but also the origins of crucifixions and apparently modern-day ones that happen. So, unbelievable. 3 communities in the Philippines partake in a Good Friday tradition of crucifixion. Each year, volunteers wear thorny crowns of twigs, carry these heavy wooden crosses on their backs for more than half a mile under a hot sun, and then volunteers dress as Roman centurions, and then they hammer 4-inch stainless steel nails through these volunteers' palms and feet, and they say they're crucified, nailed to a cross for 10 minutes. So this one guy has participated in this 35 times.
Yeah, this is... And they only stopped doing it. I think they stopped doing it for a year or two because of the pandemic.
Because of COVID.
And they were hoping that it wouldn't come back, because they're just like, this is really, really bad. But people do it, and whatever. I mean, good for him if that's what he wants to do. I don't really understand the appeal of wanting to do that. He actually looks pretty peaceful in the picture. He doesn't look like he's like in excruciating
how
pain.
Do you not have like injuries? I don't know. I don't understand that you could do it 35 times to have something impaled through your
He probably has such severe scar tissue that it's not going to really hurt any structure, but it probably hurts like a bitch. Think about, like, if you pierce your ear, right? It hurts. But then if you pierce it for like the 10th time because you take them out and decide you don't want them or anything, you're going through all that scar tissue. It's just going to be so much worse. They're clearly looking at the anatomy of a hand chart and just putting a nail through an area that's not super vital, I guess. I don't know. And it's pretty, I think it's a pretty, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool if people want to do that. It's not anything that I would be involved in, but I would like to kind of see it, to be honest with you. After reading all of these medical articles about the crucifixion and all people's different theories on what happened from a medical standpoint based upon just reading from the Bible, because that's the only accounts of it, really. There was some archaeological evidence found that they found a bone from someone that was crucified, a foot bone that had the nail still in place. And that was able to give researchers some kind of an idea of how they were hung from the cross. And it was actually through the side of the foot and not through the top of the foot. But all of it is just, so much of it is just based upon eyewitness accounts. And we know how off they can be. So yeah. It's interesting to say, well, since John said this in the gospel, this is what could have happened, but this one said this, and it's just really interesting.
Yeah, so church leaders in the Philippines are really not into this, but these people do it because they try to atone for their sins, pray for miracles, pray for peace with wars going on in the world. So if you want to do it, that's your business, but it wouldn't be me.
And the last story under other death news is about people who die having sex.
So sex has its beneficial, effects, including reducing high blood pressure, improving immune system, aiding with better sleep. It releases certain hormones that help us, bond with people better. But, people with heart conditions and other issues can sometimes have issues during sex.
Yeah, and so the incidence of, we would call something sudden death, is when you just drop dead, right? You're not in the hospital dying for weeks. You're fine, and then you drop dead. 0.6% of cases of sudden death happen during sex. And I could think of a really famous one. Remember Rose from Golden Girls?
Yeah.
I think that her husband died from having
a heart attack.
Had a heart attack during sex. So she would fall into that category. But they say in most cases it's because of physical strain, or when people are on drugs like Viagra and cocaine. And Viagra and cocaine are kind of different. They work in totally different ways. So cocaine constricts the blood vessels, and that could cause an increased rate in the heart rate, and it could cause a spasm in the coronary arteries that feed the heart. So that could cause a decrease in oxygen to get to the heart. So that's how cocaine works. And then Viagra is opposite. It dilates the blood vessels so the blood could flow freely to the penis, right? And fill it up. But the negative effect, so you would think, well, then that should be good, right? Because it's going to open the coronary artery. Because these drugs don't just target like arteries in the penis. It targets every artery in your entire body. So you would think that that would be good. Like, oh, it opened the coronary arteries while you're having sex, which actually probably could be good. But the problem is it could lower your blood pressure so much that it could also cause heart issues. So you just have to be careful with those things. But the most common cause of sudden death is in men of the age of 59 or older, and it's usually caused by a heart attack. But there's also been studies done that in younger people, as young as in their 30s, they can also die having sex too, but that's not caused by a heart attack. That's caused by a sudden arrhythmic death syndrome or aortic dissection, some kind of other problem like that.
Yeah, so really interesting to
I just can't imagine being on the opposite end of that.
No. Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Especially if the person died. Like, I'm sure plenty of people have heart attacks having sex and end up being fine, but can you imagine the person dying? How horrific.
Well, I wouldn't want them to live either, because imagine like ever trying to have sex with a person again. You would just be like, no, I'm going to kill you. I'm not doing this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be absolutely horrific experience. Okay, on to question of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we post a little question box in the story for you guys to ask questions. We're also prepping for our spring questions episodes, so some of the questions that don't make it into these individual episodes, I'm putting on the greater list for the bigger episode. First, if there were no restrictions, what would you eat for the rest of your life?
Hawaiian rolls or something. Italian pastries. I don't know. Just any. I like if I could go to a bakery and get like a bunch of pastries and cookies and stuff, I'd be down with that, or just bread.
Yeah, I would definitely say bread. I really, really miss it since we both went gluten-free. Italian donuts from the bakery are so delicious.
Yeah, like any kind of donut.
Actually, my favorite donut is from this bakery in South Philly called Frangeli's, and it's called a Franoli. It's a Italian donut filled with cannoli cream, and it's the best thing I've ever had in my
I
life.
don't know if I've ever had one of them. I feel like I had one and I was kind of like, eh.
You're ridiculous.
Like,
It's the best.
Beeler's donuts are my
Beeler's
favorite.
donuts are so good.
They're at the Reading Terminal Market, and the Amish people, oh my god, they are so good.
I've also just been going to Tim Hortons and licking the chocolate icing donuts there.
That's definitely not gluten free at all.
I'm not. Yeah, but it doesn't bother me enough.
Yeah,
so.
I get that. I wish Beeler's would try to get into the market of gluten free. It would, because I don't think I've ever had a good gluten free donut. Right?
No, I have at the new bakery in Bordentown. I'm shouting them out. Nola B's is this new gluten free bakery. Well, they've been around for a couple months, but we just discovered it. I had the best gluten-free donut I've ever had in my life there.
I didn't even try the donut yet, but they had angel food cake, and that was really banging.
It's kind of like Entenmann's like powdered sugar donut. It's really delicious.
All right, I'll try everything from there. The cookies
should go there tomorrow.
All right, maybe. Yeah, it's like,
or maybe when we're done recording, I'm gonna shoot over there because it's so good.
Oh my god,
it's not really that close to just shoot over.
Exactly.
There. I don't know. It's kind of worth it. Okay. Do you think it's bad to skip meals all day? I eat fine on some time. Wait. Do you think it's bad to skip meals some days? I'm just going to cut it off there.
No, I think you should say the rest of the question because I can't imagine. She was saying, I don't know. She was saying something about.
She said, I eat fine on other days. Sometimes I just forget.
Yeah, like that was my question to you. How do you forget to eat? Because I eat like 5 more meals a day than I probably should.
I've never forgotten to eat in my life. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, good for you, honestly. I wish that food wasn't on my mind so much, but there's been some studies done on, I guess you would call that like intermittent fasting, where they were saying that there's an increased risk of heart disease in people that are not eating for long periods of time. But then there's other people that are arguing that because apparently it's good for some people for weight loss and to maintain a healthy weight. So you might want to just look into that and read. There was a recent study that just came out within the past few weeks about that. So you might want to read up on that and just kind of gather your own thing. I personally don't know because like I said, like I just eat all the time. I definitely have some kind of drink in the morning as soon as I wake up that's got milk in it, which is at least something. And I really don't. Gabe and I are both kind of the same. Like we don't eat a whole ton during the day unless Maria makes me go to the bakery until dinner, and then we kind of eat like a big dinner. But I do still eat. Like I eat little snacks throughout the day. So which I think they always usually say that that's better, is just to keep it going instead of taking long breaks. But like I have no idea.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I had a period a couple months ago where I wasn't necessarily forgetting to eat breakfast, but I was eating it at like 11:30, not 7.
I don't understand how people do that. Like when I wake up, I need to like at least drink a tea or a coffee right away.
Yeah, I always have a drink. I never totally forget, but I don't know, because
like I'm like ravenous when I wake up in the morning. Like I just need to have something.
Because sometimes I wake up and then I'm just rushing around doing stuff, and then I go to your house, and then I just get right into working, and then all of a sudden you're like, do you want lunch? And I'm like, oh. But you also eat lunch at 11 o'clock. That's still breakfast time.
I already ate lunch before we even started today. I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning. Like my lunch time is at 10.
Yeah, like I couldn't do that.
And okay. I don't really eat. I don't even eat like a lot. Like I made Gabe and I a bowl of oatmeal. Like that's what we'll eat until tonight.
Did you finish the ham?
No.
All right, last thoughts on human combustion.
Oh, I actually wrote a post about this. I know I wrote like a Forensic Friday about this years ago. But I might have actually wrote a high-profile death on spontaneous combustion, at least a post of it in the gross room, and there's probably a little mini one on the Instagram. But yeah, it's not real. There's just I don't know what to say. Like there's really in all the forensic books and everything, it just doesn't it's not really a thing, and it always involves people who are drinking alcohol, I believe, which like just put it all together like that. It's not a real thing.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for your questions. Don't forget on Fridays to check out our story at Mother Knows Death on Instagram to leave your question. And don't forget to head over to CrimeCon.com to get your standard badges. You definitely don't want to miss out. You definitely want to see us in person and all the other awesome guests that are going to be there.
Thanks. Bye.